Yeah, first thing is like you always want to make sure your bowl is damp but not too wet. I was like, so that way everything can seal right. Yeah, I need that. Okay, and then this is also, once you make sure it's on a flat surface, same procedure, 1/3 by height this time because it's all at the same volume. So basically if you lift it up, fill it to 1/3. And you rod it 25 times. Rinse everything off once you're done with it. And hit it with the hammer 10 to 15 times. It's a spec though, pretty much everybody uses 12 through in each set. Okay, that's it for the first layer. Second layer, do the same thing. At this point, you should be 2/3 of the way up. And then you want to go 1 inch into the previous layer below. And same thing again, hit it 12 times. And finally, for the last layer, you want to go a little bit above it so that when you rod it, it goes down to the surface. Also, when you put it in there, you kind of want to have a swirling motion so that way you can get it kind of even. Though with the rodding, it'll work out so it's rough. And also when you're rodding, you can just estimate it about 1 inch into the previous layer. It's a good idea to grab it right on the rim in between your thumb and index finger. So that way, once it goes down, your hand will hit the rim and it will be the same height every time. Since this one went slightly below, we add a little bit more and do a 4th layer. And then just do a little bit into it. Now that we have all 12 layers, once your rod is rinsed off and damp, basically you want to start about 1/3 towards one side and then scrape it and roll at the same time. So that way everything starts getting nice and smooth. And you give your aggregate time to get out of the way and then your fines to fill it in on the top. off the rim. With the sponge this time, it's a lot faster. And try not to get it so that the sponge just has enough water in it to clean everything off, and try not to introduce too much. This is the actual air meter that'll test like how much air is in the concrete. You want to make sure that this surface can seal on that surface, and make sure that this is also damp and just enough so that way it can seal. If you get any part, be sure to get this black part. That's the gasket where it actually seals on. But I just do the whole thing. Okay, then I'm going to place all 4 latches on top of here and make sure that the handles are in between 2 of the latches. It's basically like that. And just rotate it to make sure that it seals on there. And then you want to put the latches down so that way the handle, it just grabs and it's not quite sealed yet. And then you lock them doing the opposites at the same time. In theory. That one's ornery. Okay. You have the eyedropper? Yeah, I need that. Okay, next step with the eyedropper. Okay, so you want to make sure these 2 valves are open. That's how it will test for the air. So that way it fills up with water to get any of the excess air out of there that's sitting on top of here. So that way it's only testing the air that's inside the concrete itself. Okay, so what you do is you fill up one side, the eyedropper, and it should come out the other side, though it's not in this case, due to imperfections in either the surface that it's on or the machine. It could be either one. If that happens, then just fill up both sides. But this one's pretty good though, like the other side was almost at the top. Then, pump up the air meter to its initial pressure. It'll say on the gauge what that initial pressure is supposed to be. In this case, it's 2.5. And the closer it gets to that initial pressure, the smaller you want to go, because if you go over, you have to bleed it and then back off. Like I do. you get to that 2.5, you want to seal these water valves by turning the handle so it's perpendicular to the valve, so that means it's closed. Then you'll press the pressure valve, and it'll show you how much air is in there. I say sometimes we tap the gauges to get an exact thing, like it'll fluctuate a little bit as it reads. And then it'll tap the gauge itself, that is. Then it'll settle on a point. In this case, they go up by tenths, so this one is 1.2 because it doesn't have any air in it. If you run into air-entrained concrete, it should be 5 to 8%. The next thing after you're done with that, once you get your number, open up the valves. It does that. That means there's pressure in there. And then press the release valve again, and it'll put your pressure out. Once that's done, then you're ready to take off the meter part. And if you did it right, like in this case, well, there's a little bit of a hole in there, but there will be a slight impression in there if you didn't. Basically, if it's forced the water down in there, and it shouldn't do that. And then basically after you take this, you clean everything off, and that's your air test.